So Freakin' Nature, it's one of my go-to ones, especially if it's a new venue or something I haven't done before. It's a very introspective track that touches on themes of just feeling alienated and just kind of out of place in a lot of different scenarios of life. What's up, y'all? This is Phok, and I'm here to break down the recipe for Freakin' Nature. I'd say the main ingredients for Freakin' Nature are one, that beautiful boom bap, beat that just kind of brings everything together. Just a very emotional chorus. I think that was the first thing I wrote about the song, is that chorus that's just like, okay, that's the theme right there. It kind of sums up everything. And then just lyricism and trying to bring a really vulnerable and authentic lyrical exploration of the themes that I kind of distill in that chorus. I be falling, I'm a freak of nature. Stuck on this earth, I'm trying to meet my maker. I be falling, I'm a freak of nature. Stuck on this earth, I'm trying to meet my maker. So, it comes in with that chorus that has kind of become an anthem, at least in Delaware. A philosopher I really like, Henri Bergson, once said that anything in philosophy can be put in simple language. And I feel like with my lyrics, I oftentimes try to do that, is just distill very complex emotions or very complex ideas from like quantum mechanics or Hegel or whatever I'm talking about, and just make it accessible, because I feel like, there's this old adage that if you can't teach something, you don't really know it. And I feel like with that, to say something very simple and being able to convey it in that accessible language kind of shows you that you actually understand, whatever thing, whatever domain you're talking about. I be sleeping through the scenic route, then I wonder why the peace abound. Over keys I feel bulimic now. I'm east of Eden where the wheats are gone. The first line is kind of, the first two bars they're kind of semi-autobiographical. My family always laughs at me. I fall asleep and if we're going on a road trip as a kid, I would fall asleep in 5 minutes once we're on the road. So then, it's kind of just taking that autobiographical, sketch, and also just applying it to, some of this might just be my perception of how things are, and not, I was sleeping, missed the scenic route, but I wonder why the peace abound. I was sleeping, and now I wonder why everyone's happy, and I'm just, still in this place. It's kind of how, you can miss things, and your perspective isn't always, total what's going on, but it still doesn't invalidate that emotion that it brings up in you, that oh man, why is everyone so happy, and I'm just, still not all the way there. I'm still feel like I'm missing something, or I still feel like I'm not fitting in how everyone else is. Over keys I feel bulimic now. I'm east of Eden where the wheat's all gone. Yeah, that's a reference to Steinbeck's novel East of Eden, and just tying in with the religious imagery that I've already kind of conjured in the chorus. And over keys I feel bulimic now, just the beautiful beat's going, and it just makes me want to just throw up everything I'm feeling, kind of just throw up all that emotional vulnerability, all that, pent up malaise and dissatisfaction with where you are in your artistic pursuits, and where you thought you were going to be and where you actually are. You're not complete until you leave this tome, so piece by piece achieve your own. All these portions still, they fork the bone. Turning, trying to leap from tomb. I speak and seek to lead the foam. It's all just Greek until you get attuned. We all die, unfortunately. And none of us really know what's going to happen after that. And we, as far as I know, we got one life to live. So give everything to the world. Leave nothing unsaid. It's a very existential song. So I think, that I just want to put that in there. As much as you might feel like a weirdo, just lean into that and be the weirdo that you are, that you can't help but being, and just go through with it, because at the end of the day, you're the one who's got to look back on your life and wonder, did I do everything I wanted to? And I think Freaking Nature really likes to bring in that existential feeling that we all kind of wrestle with. I talk about a lot of these philosophical things. I seek them, and I'm trying to get rid of the fluff and try and get to the heart of things. It's all just Greek until you get attuned. I have an obsession with Greek, and that's where Western philosophy kind of hails from. But also, the semiotic relationship of trying to look into signs and what their meanings are, and how a lot of times you need some kind of skeleton key, to really understand what's going on. And you gotta do that. It's hard and it's tough to trace all these different artists or different thoughts that you really want to engage with. But if you don't, then you're gonna lack some depth, in my opinion. Learn the signs or remain unmoved. The serpentine, certain roots. Before you eat it, better check them roots. Again, just taking this language or signs as something that you need to use to kind of create yourself, and that you got to chase these things, and that from studying patterns in the world you can find the good things, and you can also find, like, hey, snakes tend to do this stuff, so I want to keep out from those, so the serpentine, certain roots. Like, there's a way that bad influences have of moving, and you can kind of identify them if you keep attuned to the different signs. There's a lot of things that we're taught or that are given to us, and you kind of have to critically examine those as you go further, and not just accept everything that you've been brought up on. Kind of actually, when you come to be more reflective, you got to diagnose those. Are those right for me? Are those just things that people were telling me, or the culture was trying to enforce on me? Don't just accept these things willy-nilly. You got to actually critically analyze them. And then here we get like the flow change up, where I kind of start going more into double time, so I'll give this a little bit faster. It's all check and pass and checks for future, cutting checks for restitution, even as the body's blue and plod along in mimic fluid. My the mounds moving, hauling ground and laying sewage. I aim to lead, but often lose it. Yeah, it's all checkered pasts, like, it's I've done a lot of stupid stuff, and I have a lot of fuck-ups to my name. You can't let that stop you. You gotta just chess the future. You gotta plan that game out and figure out, okay, from this past and where I screwed up, what are the lessons I can take from those, and how can I project those to play by the rules but still move ahead. A lot of things are not really acknowledged and not given like their full evaluation. And sometimes our culture has a way of cutting checks and for things that they did, and there's that to bring up another quote, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. There's some truth to it, but it's also like, I don't know, that's what corporations do when they screw over little people, and then just cut checks for restitution even as the body's blowing, like even after, while these things are decomposing that they've killed. They're just like, oh, well, here's a check for $1,000 for whatever that I killed. This is another autobiographical. I work in construction, so a lot of days I am hauling ground and laying sewage. I used to literally, especially when I was doing this, I was literally laying out warehouses where we're laying pipes, like sewage pipes for these new warehouses that are popping up all over New Jersey. If you hate that they're popping up all over the place, I'm part of the problem. Sorry, I got to make money somehow. I also think, is metaphorical. Like, I talk a lot in abstraction, but sometimes I like to ground them in very visceral images, like hauling ground and laying sewage. That's something that can apply to anybody. Just living, we eat things and we shit things out, and it's kind of, but that's the cosmic cycle. So I just kind of wanted to bring in this autobiographical sketch, but kind of loop it back into progressing and showing that not all this creation has this great and vaunted stuff. There's a lot of minutia and kind of things that go into it that we don't really like to talk about it, but that's all a part of the process. The second verse kind of keeps on this thing of this optimism that I usually portray a lot in my lyrics. How a lot of times optimism is treated as naive in our culture. It's sophistication seems to be coded as like being nihilistic or thinking, oh, everything's fucked. And I always thought, I don't really understand why everyone thinks that's just the go-to of, like, oh, you're sophisticated, he thinks everything sucks. Like, I don't know why our culture seems to bring those together, but I totally reject that thesis. Break your bread and tend to tie it. Demons often feed Goliath. Fiends get keyed off mean desires and clean the hands they often admire. Life's a maze, the thread retired. All carved on a tiny island, the harbor surfer. Past crowds, men with masks and tasks for trying. If you get your ass to dad and vines, harvest gas from past expired. To clench your teeth for times of violence, but ends received in deeds and triumph. Go out there, try and make things better. Even if things are terrible and suck and you feel like a freak of nature, you feel like you don't fit in, you feel like sometimes like you just want to give up and just meet your maker, you can't. You gotta go out there, you gotta try and tend to the tired, and even when you're tired, you gotta try and give back to all the things that you've been given. A lot of times the forces that are keeping us down aren't just a product of nature, which a lot of people like to code it as, I think it's more like they're making things worse and then trying to tell us, well, that's how it's always been. And that move, to me, I try and call out in a lot of my different songs. I really dislike that, as presenting things that are horrid or aberrant as natural, and we should just accept them. Like, even if it's true that they're natural, doesn't mean we should just accept them. Aristotle has this amazing quote, man is unnaturally natural, or that we are to be a man is to make things, is to be unnatural. We create our own naturalness. So I dislike that kind of conservative argument that oh, that's just natural, that's just how things are. Like, no, we can even if it is how things have been, we're here to make it better. Yeah, it's tough to go out there and do this work. It's not easy, and your hands are gonna get messed up, and you're probably gonna spiritually sometimes just question why you're doing it. Are you making a difference? Yeah, it's tough, and I also don't like cheap optimism. I like to be real about, yeah, it sucks and it's tough, but hey, if you want to make things better, unfortunately, no one said it was going to be easy, so we got to do it. This is just bringing a metaphor of, like, sometimes you feel like feeling a freak of nature. You feel like you're on this tiny little island where, like, there's these men with masks, so you're not even sure who they are, and they got all these tasks that you're supposed to do. Sometimes creative pursuits is like, you feel like you're in like a bureaucracy of emotion or something. You're trying to take all these complex feelings and distill them and figure out what threads or narratives do you want to pursue, and how are you going to do that. And it can be a very lonely experience, but like I said, no cheap optimism here. If you want to make things better, that's what you got to do. This is just keeping on with that extended island theme. If you get your ass to that environment, a lot of times I like to say, yeah, people say, is it nature or nurture, or your environment shapes you? We're our biggest part of our environment. Every day you live up in here, you have all these thoughts, you have an ecosystem that you've created. You got to realize that, yes, your environment does shape you, but you're also the biggest part of your environment. And fortunately, at least my belief, you can change that. Through different cognitive practices or learning different things, you can shape the cognitive ecosystem that you have. And so I like, if you feel like a freak of nature, take that and use it as juice, to keep creating and to keep trying to make things better. Maybe there's things that you wish you'd done, but you got to take that and use it as fuel for the future, kind of tying it back to that, checkered past, chess for future line. You got to take, we've all done mistakes. I've done a lot of them. There's a lot of things I'm ashamed of that I would never admit on this camera that, they're there, and you got to use those as fuel to do what you want, do what that you're supposed to do here on this earth while we got the limited time. No cheap optimism. Clench your teeth for times of violence. Like, yeah, if you want to be on that island and you're trying to, cultivate whatever medium you're using to try and reach out and touch people, you have to be prepared for, you're going to meet with a lot of people who want to tell you can't do that, or things are impossible, or, bro, you're almost 30, what are you doing? All that kind of stuff, but still, you got to persevere. If you do it, you'll know at the end, you'll have that feeling of accomplishment, even if it's not everything you hoped it to be. I think that if you earnestly put yourself, every day trying to trying to make whatever it is that you make for the world, to try and shape it up and make it not such a place where we all feel like freaks of nature and we all feel a little bit alienated from it. If you take that and you actually try and cultivate yourself and cultivate what you know you're here to do, that 9 times out of 10, the world will be better for it, and we all thank you. But yeah, for the last line, after I say the chorus a number of times, been pushing rocks, but now my smile fades. That's tied to Camus, in one of his books. I can't remember exactly which one it is. He says that, you know, he must imagine Sisyphus smiling. Sisyphus is the guy who's pushing the boulder up the hill eternally. I just like that line because it ties in that, like, yeah, back to the no cheap optimism. Yeah, you're gonna have to push that rock up the hill, and you might feel like, man, every day I'm just pushing this rock up the hill, and every day it's the same hill, and I'm not getting anywhere. But your smile might fade, but you know that is the hard work that we're here to do, and unfortunately, that seems to be the way that the world works now. So you gotta keep just plodding along and keep pushing that rock inch by inch, and you know, hopefully you'll see some smiles along the way. I'm Phok, and that was the recipe breakdown for Freakin' Nature.